The borrower is slave to the lender. This is not metaphor, this is mathematics. The average household in developed nations carries over $100,000 in debt. Credit cards, auto loans, mortgages, student obligations, each one a chain, each payment a surrender of future freedom. We call this normal. We call this responsible. We celebrate the approval of a loan as if it were a promotion. But approval is not empowerment. It is permission to serve. The system trains you to confuse access with ownership, to mistake borrowing for building, to believe that debt accelerates wealth when it actually accelerates servitude. Debt does not create connection. It creates control. The person who holds your note holds your time. They hold your choices. They hold your peace. This arrangement survives not because it benefits you. It survives because it benefits the lender. And the most dangerous debt is the kind you do not recognize as debt. The psychological debt of living beyond your means, the emotional debt of keeping up appearances, the spiritual debt of trading tomorrow for today. Solomon saw this pattern 3,000 years ago. He watched empires rise and fall on the same principle. He documented the mechanism with surgical precision, and his warning remains unaltered by time. Because human nature has not changed. The temptation to borrow has not changed. The mathematics of servitude has not changed. What has changed is the packaging. Debt now arrives wrapped in convenience, delivered with approval, marketed as opportunity, but the core transaction remains identical. You trade future freedom for present consumption. You mortgage your autonomy for temporary comfort. This is not a financial error. This is a fundamental misalignment of identity. You were created to build, not to borrow, to steward, not to serve. The path back begins with a single recognition. Debt is not a tool. It is a trap. And the first step toward freedom is refusing to enter. There are two types of people when it comes to money. One type views debt as a bridge, a temporary structure to cross from where they are to where they want to be. They believe the bridge will vanish after use. They do not see that the bridge becomes the foundation of their entire life. Every decision filtered through the need to service the debt. Every opportunity weighed against the obligation to repay. Every relationship strained by the silent pressure of numbers on a screen. The other type views debt as a boundary, something to be avoided except in rare, deliberate circumstances. They build slowly. They save first. They purchase only what their current resources allow. This path feels slower. It lacks the immediate gratification of acquisition, but it preserves something more valuable than speed. It preserves optionality, the ability to say no, the capacity to walk away, the freedom to change direction without permission. One path leads to a life of reaction, constantly responding to demands from external creditors. The other path leads to a life of response, choosing actions based on wisdom rather than obligation. The difference is not income. A high earner can be enslaved by debt. A modest earner can be free without it. The difference is not intelligence. Brilliant people make catastrophic debt decisions. The difference is not luck. Debt compounds predictably. Freedom compounds predictably. The difference is a single choice repeated daily, the choice to delay gratification, to prioritize future freedom over present convenience, to value autonomy more than appearance. This choice creates a psychological divide. On one side, chronic anxiety, the low hum of worry that never fully disappears. On the other side, quiet confidence, the knowledge that no external force controls your next move. You may not have everything you want today, but you own your tomorrow. This is not about moral superiority. It is about mathematical reality. Debt multiplies constraints. Savings multiply choices. The borrower lives within walls built by others. The saver builds walls of their own design. One path narrows over time. The other path widens. The question is not which path you prefer. The question is which path you are walking right now, and whether you have the courage to change direction before the walls close completely. Proverbs 22, verse 7 states clearly, "The borrower is slave to the lender." Solomon wrote these words during his reign as king of Israel, a period of unprecedented wealth and influence. He controlled trade routes. He managed vast resources. He understood economics at a systemic level. Yet he did not write about complex investment strategies. He did not detail tax advantages or market timing. He focused on a single foundational relationship, the relationship between borrower and lender. Notice the word he chose: slave, not servant, not partner, not customer, slave. In the ancient Near East, slavery was a legal and economic reality. A person who could not repay debts might be forced into servitude. Their labor belonged to the creditor until the obligation was satisfied. Solomon observed that even without formal chains, the psychological reality remained identical. The borrower surrenders autonomy. The lender gains control. This is not poetic exaggeration. This is descriptive accuracy. The Hebrew word used here implies a binding obligation that restricts movement and choice. Modern translations sometimes soften this to servant, but the original carries the weight of bondage. Solomon did not say the borrower might feel constrained. He stated a fact. The borrower becomes slave, present tense, immediate consequence, not a future possibility, a current reality. In contemporary terms, this means every unpaid debt transfers a piece of your future to someone else. Your paycheck no longer belongs entirely to you. A portion travels automatically to satisfy the lender. Your career choices narrow. You cannot quit a job you dislike because the payment must be made. Your geographic freedom shrinks. You cannot move to pursue an opportunity because the mortgage anchors you. Your emotional bandwidth diminishes. Mental energy spent calculating payments cannot be spent nurturing relationships or pursuing growth. This principle survives 3,000 years because it describes a universal human dynamic. Debt creates dependency. Dependency creates vulnerability. Vulnerability invites control. The mechanism operates identically whether the debt is to a bank, a credit card company, or a family member. The size of the debt is irrelevant. A $500 credit card balance exerts the same psychological pressure as a $500,000 mortgage. Both demand repayment. Both restrict choice. Both whisper the same message: you are not free. Solomon's insight was not about money, it was about power. Who holds power in the relationship? The one who owes or the one who is owed? The answer determines everything. This is why the principle appears in wisdom literature rather than legal code. It is not primarily a financial rule. It is a psychological law. And like gravity, it operates whether you believe in it or not. You can ignore it, but you cannot escape its effects. The borrower serves. The lender rules. This is not opinion. This is observation, repeated across millennia, validated by every culture that has kept records. Debt slavery is the oldest form of economic bondage, and it remains the most common because it wears a friendly face. It arrives with promises of ease. It departs with pieces of your soul. When you carry debt, something shifts inside you, a subtle erosion of self-trust. You begin to make decisions based on what you owe rather than what you value. The car payment dictates your career path. The mortgage payment dictates your risk tolerance. The credit card minimum dictates your monthly peace. This is not merely external pressure. It becomes internal architecture. Your mind builds corridors that all lead back to the same question: can I make the payment? Opportunities are evaluated through this lens. A better job in another city seems impossible because of the house. Starting a business feels reckless because of the student loans. Helping a family member in need creates anxiety because the budget is already tight. Debt does not just cost money. It costs imagination. It costs courage. It costs the ability to see possibilities beyond the next due date. The psychological weight manifests physically: tight shoulders, restless nights, a constant low-grade anxiety that hums beneath daily life. You may not name it as debt stress, you call it work pressure or family responsibility, but trace the thread, follow the obligation. The source is often a promise made to a lender during a moment of impatience. Contrast this with the person free from consumer debt. Their decisions flow from a different source, not obligation, but intention. They can accept a lower-paying job that offers fulfillment. They can walk away from a toxic workplace without panic. They can invest time in learning a new skill because survival is not tied to the next paycheck. This is not about having more money. It is about having fewer claims on the money you do have. The debt-free person experiences time differently. Their future feels open, not predetermined by repayment schedules. They sleep deeply because no creditor owns a piece of their tomorrow. This psychological freedom compounds silently. It allows for clearer thinking, better decisions, stronger relationships. Debt creates a scarcity mindset even in abundance. You may earn well, but feel poor because so much is already spoken for. Freedom creates an abundance mindset even in modest circumstances. You may have little but feel rich because it is all yours to direct. The invisible cost of debt is the surrender of agency, the feeling that life happens to you rather than through you. Every borrowed dollar transfers a fragment of your autonomy. Over time, these fragments accumulate until you barely recognize your own voice beneath the demands of repayment. You become a manager of obligations rather than a creator of legacy. This is the true slavery Solomon described. Not physical chains, but the internal prison of perpetual obligation. The numbers on the statement become weights on the spirit, and the heaviest debt is the one you carry silently. The debt of lifestyle inflation, the debt of comparison, the debt of believing you need what others have. This debt has no statement, no due date, but it enslaves just the same. It keeps you running on a treadmill of acquisition, never arriving at peace. Breaking free begins with recognizing the chains, not as financial instruments, but as psychological constraints, then refusing to add another link. Charlie Munger spent 70 years studying human misjudgment. He identified 25 cognitive biases that lead to poor decisions. Among the most destructive, he named envy and impatience. These two forces drive people into debt. Envy makes you want what others have now. Impatience makes you borrow to get it faster. Munger's solution was inversion. Instead of asking how to get rich, ask how to avoid ruin. His first rule: never go into debt for depreciating assets, cars, boats, electronics. These lose value the moment you acquire them. Borrowing to buy them means paying interest on something worth less tomorrow. This is mathematical suicide. Munger called it avoiding stupidity rather than seeking brilliance. Benjamin Graham developed the concept of margin of safety, the idea that you should only invest when there is a buffer between price and value. This principle applies directly to debt. Borrowing eliminates your margin of safety. It removes the buffer between your income and your obligations. One missed paycheck and the system collapses. Graham understood that safety comes from ownership, not leverage. Warren Buffett has built one of history's greatest fortunes without using debt at the corporate level for decades. He keeps billions in cash reserves, not because he lacks investment opportunities, but because liquidity is freedom. Debt is the opposite of liquidity. It is illiquidity by contract. Buffett states plainly that leverage can turn a good decision into a catastrophic one. One market downturn, one unexpected event, and the debt holder calls the shots. Your assets become theirs. Your choices vanish. John Templeton practiced spiritual discipline in finance. He tithed 10% before any other expense. He lived below his means consistently. He viewed debt as a failure of trust. Trust that provision would come through disciplined saving rather than borrowed promises. These men did not discover new principles. They rediscovered ancient ones. Munger's inversion is Solomon's warning against suretyship. Graham's margin of safety is the biblical principle of storing grain in years of plenty. Buffett's aversion to leverage is the practical application of the borrower-slave equation. Templeton's discipline mirrors the Jewish tradition of maser kesafim, tithing as a boundary against greed. The language differs, the century differs. The truth remains identical. Debt concentrates risk, savings distribute resilience. Modern finance packages debt as empowerment, but the wisest practitioners treat it as poison. They avoid it not because they cannot access it, but because they understand its true cost. The cost is not the interest rate, the cost is the surrender of optionality. The moment you borrow, you trade future flexibility for present convenience. And in a world of constant change, flexibility is the most valuable asset you possess. These modern validators reached their conclusions through observation, not revelation. They watched markets. They studied human behavior. They saw the same pattern Solomon saw. Debt creates fragility. Savings create anti-fragility. The borrower breaks under pressure. The saver bends and recovers. This alignment across millennia is not coincidence. It is confirmation. The principle survives because it describes reality, not opinion, not preference, reality. And reality does not negotiate. Picture this. The economy contracts. Layoffs sweep through your industry. Your employer calls you into a meeting. The job you relied on for 15 years ends today. Two people face this identical moment. One person carries $70,000 in consumer debt. Credit cards maxed for vacations and dining. A car loan for a vehicle they could not afford. Student loans still lingering from a degree that did not increase earning power. Their emergency fund consists of $300 in a checking account. The other person carries no consumer debt. They paid cash for their reliable used car. They avoided lifestyle inflation after each raise. They built a 12-month emergency fund over 7 years of disciplined saving. Same crisis, different preparation. The first person enters panic immediately. The severance package covers 2 months of expenses. But the debt payments consume 60% of that amount. They cannot stop the payments without destroying their credit. They cannot find a comparable job quickly in a shrinking market. They drain the small savings. Then they borrow more on credit cards to survive. The debt compounds, the stress compounds. Their marriage fractures under the financial strain. Arguments replace conversation. Hope replaces planning. They take any job available just to make minimum payments. The career trajectory they built over years vanishes in 90 days, not because of lack of skill, but because of lack of margin. The second person feels the shock of job loss, but not the terror of collapse. Their emergency fund covers all expenses for a full year. No payments demand attention, no creditors call. They use the first month to process the loss, the second month to update their resume, the third month to interview without desperation. They can afford to wait for the right opportunity, not just any opportunity. They negotiate from strength. They accept a role that aligns with long-term goals. The transition takes 8 months, but they emerge with dignity intact. Relationships strengthened by shared resilience. Financial position unharmed. Same external event, opposite internal experiences. This is not luck. This is mathematics. Debt multiplies vulnerability. Savings multiply resilience. The crisis does not create the outcome. The preparation does. The first person was not unlucky. They were unprepared. Not through malice, but through incremental choices. One unnecessary purchase, one rationalized loan. One moment of impatience repeated until the walls closed. The second person was not lucky. They were disciplined, not through genius, but through consistent refusal, refusing the upgrade, refusing the loan, refusing the temporary comfort that demanded permanent cost. The difference between survival and thriving in crisis is not income. It is obligation. The person with obligations serves the crisis. The person without obligations navigates the crisis. This scenario repeats in medical emergencies, business downturns, family disruptions, natural disasters. The pattern never changes. Debt amplifies every shock. Savings absorb every shock. You cannot prevent the storm, but you can build a house that withstands it. Or you can build a house of cards that collapses at the first breeze. The choice is made long before the wind arrives, in quiet moments of decision, when no one is watching, when the salesperson offers easy financing, when the advertisement promises instant gratification, when your friend buys a new car and you feel the pull to keep up. In those moments, you are not choosing a purchase. You are choosing a future self. The self who panics in crisis, or the self who navigates with calm, the self who serves lenders, or the self who serves legacy. The mathematics is silent, but it is absolute. The rules are simple. Never borrow money to purchase anything that loses value. Cars depreciate, electronics depreciate, furniture depreciates. Borrowing for these items means paying interest on disappearing value. This is financial self-harm. Pay cash or do not buy. Never carry a balance on a credit card under any circumstance. Credit cards are transaction tools, not borrowing tools. If you cannot pay the full statement balance each month, you are borrowing. And borrowing at 20% interest is slavery with extra steps. Cut up the card if necessary. Use cash or debit until discipline returns. Build an emergency fund covering 6 months of expenses before investing a single dollar in stocks or real estate. This fund is not an investment. It is insurance against forced debt. Keep it in a separate account. Never touch it except for true emergencies. Medical crisis, job loss, major home repair. Not vacations, not upgrades, not opportunities. True emergencies only. Never co-sign a loan for anyone. Not your child, not your parent, not your best friend. Co-signing makes you the primary borrower in the lender's eyes. Their failure becomes your obligation. Their poor choice becomes your prison. Love does not require financial suicide. Help them build credit slowly, but never guarantee their debt with your freedom. Pay off existing debts using the debt snowball method. List all debts smallest to largest. Attack the smallest first with every available dollar while making minimum payments on others. The psychological win of eliminating one debt builds momentum. Momentum builds discipline. Discipline eliminates all debt. These rules are not complicated. They require no financial expertise. They demand only patience and consistency. You will face pressure to violate them. Advertisements will call you foolish for waiting. Friends will question your choices. Family may not understand. But their freedom is not your responsibility. Your freedom is your responsibility. These boundaries are not restrictions. They are protections, like a fence around a cliff. The fence does not limit your movement. It prevents your fall. Debt boundaries protect your future self from your present impatience. They transform you from borrower to builder, from servant to steward, from reactive to responsive. The path requires saying no today so you can say yes tomorrow. No to the upgrade. Yes to freedom. No to the loan. Yes to legacy. No to temporary comfort. Yes to permanent peace. This is not deprivation. It is redirection. Redirecting resources from consumption to creation. From serving lenders to serving generations. The rules work because they align with reality, not with desire. Reality rewards patience. Desire rewards impatience. Choose which master you will serve. The choice compounds daily. One decision seems small. 1,000 decisions build a life. You are making that choice right now, in this moment. With this understanding, the rules wait. They do not judge. They simply work for those who follow them, and fail those who ignore them. The mathematics does not care about your excuses. It only responds to your actions. This is not complicated. Debt creates slavery. Savings create freedom. You are not powerless. You are not trapped by your past decisions. Every moment offers a new choice. the choice to stop adding debt, the choice to attack existing obligations, the choice to build 1 month of emergency savings, then 2, then 6. Freedom is not a destination, it is a direction. Each payment toward debt is a step toward autonomy. Each dollar saved is a brick in the foundation of your legacy. Your children will inherit your financial patterns, not your intentions. They will learn from your behavior, not your lectures. Will they learn that debt is normal, or that freedom is possible? Will they inherit chains or keys? The question is not whether you can change. The question is whether you will. Change begins with a single refusal. Refuse the unnecessary purchase. Refuse the easy loan. Refuse the comparison that breeds envy. Then build one new habit. Save $10 this week, then $20 next week. Small actions repeated consistently rewrite your financial story. You are capable of this discipline, not because you are special, but because you are human, and humans thrive under boundaries. Boundaries create safety. Safety creates peace. Peace creates clarity. Clarity creates wisdom. Wisdom builds legacy. This path requires no special knowledge, only ordinary courage applied daily. Courage to wait, courage to save, courage to say no when everyone else says yes. The world will not applaud your discipline. It profits from your debt. But your future self will thank you. Your children will thank you. Your grandchildren will benefit from choices you make today in silence. You are not building a portfolio. You are building a heritage, not of dollars, but of freedom, not of assets, but of autonomy. This is the Solomon Wealth Code, not a secret formula for quick riches, but a timeless pattern for lasting peace. The borrower serves, the saver builds. The choice remains yours, today, tomorrow, for the rest of your life. Walk in that truth. Breathe in that freedom. Release the chains you have carried too long. They were never meant for you. You were made for stewardship, not servitude, for legacy, not liability, for peace that passes understanding, not anxiety that consumes days. Close your eyes for a moment if you can. Acknowledge the debt you carry, not with shame, but with clarity. Ask for wisdom to navigate the path out, not overnight, but faithfully. One payment, one saved dollar, one refused temptation at a time. Protect the legacy you are building, not for yourself alone, but for those who will come after. Remember this single truth as you move forward. Debt is slavery. Freedom is possible. Choose accordingly. Go in peace. Walk in wisdom. Remember, the borrower serves, the builder reigns.